Thank you for being here today, everyone. I'm delighted that you could find some time to come out and join us. My name is Josh Kavanaugh. I'm the new Director of Transportation for the campus. I'm going to wear that new banner as long as I can get away with it. 5 months on the job this week, and so I've been spending a lot of time listening and learning, going and seeing. And we'll talk today about some of the things that I've learned, some of the changes that we're making in the campus transportation system, trying to make it work a little bit more effectively for all of you. And then we'll also have a dialogue about those things that you have questions about, or those things that you'd like us to consider doing a little bit differently. So I want to briefly acknowledge some of the folks who helped make today possible: my parent organization in resource management and planning, the team here with the health system and the School of Medicine, Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, and of course the Academic Senate, who grabbed me my very first week on campus and said, we need to talk transportation, and we've been best buddies ever since. We'll use the term buddies loosely, but no, had a very active dialogue about how we can continue to improve transportation here on the campus, and specifically Committee on Faculty Welfare and the Committee on Campus and the Community Environment, Dr. C.K. Cheng and Shirley Meng chairing those. So my name, as I mentioned, is Josh Kavanaugh. Contact information on your screen there. I know you didn't come here to hear about me and my past, but briefly I wanted to note, because I will probably reference examples from a few of these cases. Immediately before coming to join the university, I was the manager for global commuter benefits for Amazon.com, working in downtown Seattle, where those giant glass balls are now. Was the Director of Transportation Services at the University of Washington for about a decade prior to that. Of relevance to the folks in the room with us here on the health system campus today is there we had the WWAMI Regional Trauma Center, so JACO 1 institution, Carnegie Research Intensive Institution. Similarly, at the University of New Mexico, where I was at for close to a decade prior to going to Washington. Again, the Regional Medical Center on campus there we had just the one hospital versus the two as we have here and had in Washington. But again, a very similar environment. Today is one of a series of town halls that we're doing. It's number 4 in the series for faculty and staff. We move on to talking explicitly about student transportation issues next week. I had a great question in one of the sessions earlier this week. Is this a flash in the pan, one and done, or 7 and done, as the case may be? And the answer is no. We will make these at least an annual event in terms of a chance for the whole campus to be invited out and talk together. But it was even suggested that we have more frequent and more informal conversations. And so there's talk that this idea came over at Hillcrest, perhaps just going over, setting up at a table in the cafeteria once a quarter and listening. And making that opportunity available to the public. I thought it was a great idea and plan to do that. Would love to do that on the medical campus here in La Jolla as well. And if we have anyone joining us from other locations on the campus, either in the room or by video, send us your suggestions to do that, and we'd be very happy to oblige. So there are also other opportunities to engage besides in-person town halls. I want to make you all aware of our virtual town hall. We launched this last week. It's an online forum where we post major operational or policy changes that are being considered by the department and invite public feedback. Clearly, not everyone can get away to join us in a forum like this. And so this is a manner by which we can engage the entire campus community, also do so fairly quickly, and be able to iterate and innovate within the transportation system on a short timeline. First to Know, also launched last week, is our opt-in email notification service. We've all received those wonderfully inviting black and white, lots of text, all-campus emails. I have tongue firmly planted in cheek when I say very inviting on those. We can do better in terms of transportation by getting you just the information that directly affects you. And so we invite you to visit our website. In the Engage section, you'll find First to Know. Subscribe. Let us know. You can subscribe to any given parking area on campus. So if you park on the La Jolla campus for the health system, check that box. And as changes occur to the health system parking here in La Jolla, you'll get a brief email. And we sent one out just earlier this week for the folks that had subscribed to that about the addition of 40B stalls in the Athena parking garage. So share this resource with your colleagues. Subscription is growing every day, but it's still a fraction of the campus community. What I can promise to you is that the communications will be frequent, but they will be bite-sized. The notifications that went out this week were about 2 sentences long, which, given everything that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, feels about right. We don't want to be taking over your inbox with this stuff. Want to get you just the information you care about and when it's important to know. So any parking facility, any of our shuttle routes, major projects that are happening on campus, alternative modes of transportation, there are subscription options on there for all of that. Tell us what's important to you, and we will promise to get you timely news about those issues. Of course, then, our direct contact information there on the screen for you, and invite you to reach out to us about any issue, anytime, because again, we can only get together in person and have these sort of open-ended conversations so often. I do hope that while this is my first set of town halls with the university, and we hope to repeat annually at least, that this is the beginning of a conversation that can be much more robust than that. And so again, I invite you to write into us, call, reach out to me personally, or whether by email or phone. We're on a process of positive change here, and are really looking forward to partnering with the community on that. Briefly, our agenda for today then, we're going to do as brief as I can keep it, set of updates on the transportation program, where we're at right now. Brief overview, some of the issues and opportunities we're facing. We'll also forecast some of the things that we're going to be working on going forward. This will talk about the campus fairly broadly, so while we're sitting here on the health system campus today, we'll also talk about things that are going on over in the central part of the campus, and thank you for your patience on that. This is your chance to get answers to those burning questions that you've had, or to provide feedback directly to the organization so that we can go forth and make changes that are going to be meaningful to you. So, briefly, we are an auxiliary of the university. That means we're 100% customer supported. We take that very, very seriously. So every dollar that we receive is a voluntary well, except maybe those citations, but contribution from our customers, and we try to be very good stewards of those dollars and invest them in things that are going to improve services or deliver additional value for you. We have 82 career staff who help do that, 223 student employees, and they are charged with managing the transportation infrastructure and operations for the academic campus and for the UC health system in all its iterations. That means the maintenance and operations of about 3.2 million square feet of transportation facilities. Also, we support the planning, design, and construction teams at the university as they go through those activities and build out new capacity for the campus. We want to make sure that is designed and brought to realization in a way that we're actually going to be able to operate and deliver quality connections for you coming back and forth to work and school every day. So we have 3 primary operating units to deliver this: our parking team, our shuttles team, and the transportation demand management team. And for those of you who haven't heard transportation demand management, or TDM, before, I will slip back into that language occasionally. I apologize. It's a term of art from the industry that refers to all of the ways that we get people back and forth that don't involve a single occupancy vehicle. So it is biking and walking and carpool and van pool and public transit and any number of the new mobility services that are emerging. Speaking of those new mobility services, we manage those for the campus as well, both trying to make them more available, but also managing the impact on the campus of services like Uber and Lyft, bike share, and the rental of light electric vehicles we're now seeing take off. We also handle the programs to support public transit, biking, carpooling, van pooling, ride sharing, handle ADA transportation for the campus, the little carts that you see out and about that are available to you, by the way, whether you have a ongoing lifelong mobility impairment, or just have a really bad day on the slopes and find yourself in a walking cast for a period of time. So we do event supports for the university, about 500 major events where we've got staff out in the field helping to bring guests into the university and get them situated. We also handle more than 2,500 smaller multi-person events each year where we're involved in the planning, setting up the logistics for that, but don't actually need to have people out in the field to support those. And then lots and lots of little services that can help make a big difference on the campus. The Holiday Airport shuttles that are heavily used by students, ProRide that's heavily used by faculty and our MSP staff along with postdocs. So these are just a sampling of the sorts of things that we provide to the campus as a part of the transportation program. And again, thank you for your financial support that makes all of that possible. So I won't dwell on this, but I did want to highlight that we are in this moment of change as an organization. We have a new director that's come in. We've merged together what used to be in disparate departments to form a single unit called Transportation Services. And that means we're looking inward a little bit right now. And so we have our mission, vision, and customer promise on the screen right now. I also have the email address on the bottom for Luana Richmond, who handles organizational development for us. And I invite you to provide feedback on these statements. My hope is both that they will speak to our team in Transportation Services, but that they speak to you as our customers. To highlight just a few key things about our understandings that are baked into these, we're here first and foremost to support the work that you do and the mission of the university. Nobody comes here for the joy of parking. Nobody comes here for the delight of riding a shuttle bus, even though we hope that those rides are delightful. The reality is you're here to take care of the other good work that the university does through its research service and teaching missions. And so we're here to help enable all of that. It's our vision that we should be a provider of choice, and I recognize that may feel strange to hear because there's not a whole lot of choice on who can provide you a parking space at your office. But although we are by definition something that is almost like a monopoly, in the way that we approach our work, we can't be, right? We want to make sure that if you had a choice between us and a private parking operator providing services right next to your building, or as close as we can get you to your building, that you would choose us. That you would choose us because of the value that we offer to you, that we're winning, whether it's on price, whether it's on quality of service, or hopefully all of the above, right? So finally, our customer promise, and this is a new statement, but it was important to me when I arrived here that we make it clear both to our customers but also to every member of the team that customers are and have to be at the center of everything that we do. And that is customers in all shapes and forms, whether it is our patients who are coming to the hospitals here on campus, folks who are coming in for art events, or simply our customer colleagues who are trying to come to work every day. Customers have to be at the heart of every service we provide. They have to be at the heart of every decision that we make. And we need to be providing them with not just transportation choice, but meaningful transportation choices. There should be multiple things that we put in front of you in terms of ways to get to and from the campus that are actually feasible for you to take advantage of. And you need the information that is required in order to make an effective choice among those. So that is a tall order, but it is the march that we are on, and appreciate your feedback about whether we're headed in the right direction and how we can best get there. So about the regional transportation program, we've got the trolley station that we're working to support right out front here on Voight. The other station at Pepper Canyon and the first and last mile or circulation paths that are connecting to each of those. We've been working to support the Gilman Bridge, which I think is going to be particularly transformational for this part of campus, along with the Genesee Interchange and bike path and a whole host of other regional partnerships that are helping to improve mobility to and from the La Jolla campus. And it is our hope, particularly with the light rail, that these will be catalysts that further accelerate the change that we have been on. If you take a look over the last 15 years and change, we flipped the paradigm from being a campus where nearly 70% of the trips to campus each day were in a single occupancy vehicle, just over 30% in alternatives, to where we now have a little over 40% of trips in a drive-alone mode, more than 55% that are coming in some form of shared or alternative transportation. What this means in terms of trip generation for the university is that all of the growth that we've taken over this last 15 years or so, those years when we were adding 2,000 students a year to the university population and a commensurate member of faculty and staff, the intensification or densification of the La Jolla campus for the health system has all been accomplished without creating net new trips to and from the university in terms of single occupancy vehicles. We've held the number of single occupancy vehicles coming to and from the campus pretty much flat over the last close to 18 years. That is fairly extraordinary and was one of the reasons that I was excited about coming to join the campus. Now, I got to give our students a lot of credit because they are a very big part of why we've achieved that. Our faculty and staff struggle for a number of reasons that won't be hard for you to imagine to make the transition to use of so-called alternative transportation. And that's okay. But where there are folks that are in that nearly 70% of faculty that come to campus in a single occupancy vehicle, more than 75% of our staff that come in a single occupancy vehicle, we hoped to help them make the transition. Today, those empty seats that are coming into campus every day in all of those single occupancy vehicles are one of our best unmined, most affordable, lowest carbon transportation resources that's out there, right? And so if we can incrementally increase occupancy in the vehicles that are coming to the campus, it can make a really big difference for the environment. It can make a big difference for the cost structure of the campus parking system and what we all contribute in parking fees. And can also free up land so that we can continue to grow as an institution. So speaking of freeing up land, this is the moment that we find ourselves in as an institution right now, where we are consolidating the parking supply of the university. Every university I've been at, every university I've visited or consulted for, surface parking serves as a land bank for campus development. And it's no different here at the University of California in San Diego. And so we lose space to campus construction projects. Ironically, even when we're building more parking, we temporarily at least lose space to the construction of those parking facilities. But by consolidating parking primarily in parking structures, we build strategically located long-term assets that do allow us then to free up that land for redevelopment, densification of the campus, and sort of higher and better uses, to use the industry vernacular. And we are doing this right and left, and we will dive into a few of these projects later on. In the meantime, I just wanted to show the sort of raw scale of the construction of parking that we're doing on the campus. And so in the 2016 to 2022 timeline, when light rail is coming on board, these are all of the construction projects that we're doing that will add parking space to the campus. And even though we will experience losses during that period, we are creating net parking. Over that time horizon, now to 2022, we will add 3,050 net stalls to the campus. And the important thing is that beginning of this fall, we are scheduled, and I say scheduled because construction is construction and things slip out of phase periodically, but we are scheduled to be adding parking space to the campus faster than we lose it to construction. So every year, every quarter, we are adding net space to the campus, and that's a very good thing. So let's touch then on the North Torrey Pines Living and Learning Center. And so for those of you situated over here on the East Campus, this will affect you less directly. If you do head over to the School of Medicine, it will impact you for folks that are participating online. I know that you are concerned about this project and the way it's going to affect parking on the Central Campus. First, I wanted to highlight we have an open house coming up on the project this Monday, 4 to 6 at the Faculty Club. I hope you'll be able to join us. It is a big project. It's going to take about 970 parking stalls offline in late June of this year, right after commencement. Those will be offline for about 2 years. Fall 2020, the North Torrey Pines Living and Learning neighborhood opens up. Baked into that project are 1,200 stalls. So we replace all and we add about 20%. But we've got a period of time to get through there. So relief is coming in the form of the Ostler parking garage that's been under construction for the last year or so. 1,350 stalls that we'll be adding at the intersection of Ostler and Scholars, along with Gilman there. That comes online prior to the fall quarter of 2018. We're pushing the opening date up on that as much as possible, hounding the contractor to make sure that they deliver ahead of schedule and also under budget, which we're on track for with this project. We're also talking with the contractor on the North Torrey Pines Living Learning project to look at a phased startup to that project. Do the construction fences really need to go up on the entire site on day one of that project? Or do we have an opportunity to ease the campus into that transition? We certainly hope it's the latter. So in addition to Ostler, we've proposed a new parking lot of 305 stalls at Expedition Way or Capricorn Way. This is just north of the J. Craig Ventnor Center. That lot, I highlight that it is proposed at this point. That is in the coastal zone and so subject to permitting from the Coastal Commission. That introduces a certain amount of uncertainty into the project, but we are pursuing it. And if approved, that will open in time for the fall quarter of the coming year. And finally, we do have approval just recently for an expansion at the Torrey Pines Glider Port. And so we'll be adding an additional 100 stalls at the Glider Port and reconfiguring that lot to move all the parking over to the east end, or all the commuter parking, I should say, and get it a little bit closer to the shuttle stop, closer to the Central Campus for those folks that are walking into the campus. If you have heard about contractor parking at the Glider Port, contractor laydown at the Glider Port, rest easy. That will not have any impact on parking available for UCSD commuters. We are adding, not losing parking for UCSD at the Glider Port. We've got a lot of different tools that we use to manage mobility during construction, and we have been adding to this toolbox throughout this period of construction that the campus has been in. By the way, to put that in context, over the last 5 years, the UC San Diego has done about $2 billion worth of capital improvements on the campus. Looking forward, we expect over the next 5 years to do somewhere in the I've heard numbers as high as possibly even $4 billion worth of capital construction on the campus. So we're going to remain in this moment where we continue to use all the tools in our toolbox and all of the above strategy for managing transportation impacts. So what are the sort of proven strategies that we've been using over the last several years? First, rebalancing of parking allocations. The A, Bs, and S's that you see out in our parking lots. When construction impacts an area, we rebalance the supply in order to make sure that those mission-critical functions have priority in terms of access to the campus. And so our faculty and staff who have to be in specific places at specific times, particularly faculty who also have appointments off campus or have professional engagement obligations that bring them in and out all day, need a different kind of access, and we work to ensure that. One of the ways in which we do that is the time-limited spaces. We've demonstrated this technique at the School of Medicine, Revelle, and the Faculty Club over the last several years. These are the 2 and 3 hour spaces that allow someone to pop in, teach their lecture, and get back out without having space search time associated with parking. So we try to make that as efficient as possible. So we've also added temporary employee valet parking. We did this at the Biomedical Library on Mandeville Lane, and just recently at the Athena parking structure in partnership with the health system. These are techniques that we are looking at all of as it relates to North Torrey Pines, because they have served us well during the existing period of construction. Our shuttle routes, so that we can serve more users with both added stops and also improve frequency and reliability. And I'll note that the shuttle changes that we made this last January anticipated North Torrey Pines living and learning. And so this was an opportunity for us to test in real time, but before the campus was under extraordinary pressure, shake out any operational details with those routes and make sure that we're ready for the change to come. So we've added and expanded our LiftFlex commute pilot program, which gives you a premium on your Lyft credit when you purchase that in advance. You get an extra little bonus there. We also provide some complimentary parking days on the campus for those days when you do need to drive in. We've recently expanded the ProRide service, which is our on-campus, free-to-use ride service for faculty, MSP staff, and postdocs as well. We launched Spin, our campus bike share program. That has been just a smashing success. 1 on 10 bicycles on campus are now a Spin bike. Our ridership on the program grows by a net new 250 rides per week. And we've, because of that added pressure and growth, grown the fleet on campus. And so we started out the pilot with 50 bikes. We added 250 at the beginning of this year. We've just added another 100. And because our population tends to travel within UC and also in Pacific Beach, Spin has now added 100 bikes for our customers in each of those locations as well. I'm also pleased to share that we'll be adding our first e-bikes to the fleet coming up during May for Bike Month. And so we'll have currently projected 50 e-bikes that we'll be adding to the fleet that are going to be great for folks that are making longer hauls edge to edge on the campus, or particularly for folks who are headed up and down the hill to Scripps. So finally, we've introduced a number of new communication tools, including both First to Know and the virtual town hall that I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. So specific to the North Torrey Pines Living and Learning neighborhood mitigations, we'll be adding time-limited A spaces as we've done in the past, but also for the first time, time-limited B spaces. We've heard from staff members on the campus, particularly those that are in administrative support positions, trainers that have to move about the campus with materials, that they, like faculty, are in and out frequently and need some place that they can reliably, without that space search time, get in quickly, proximate to their building for loading materials in and out, and then move on. So we'll be piloting a small number of time-limited B spaces associated with the project as well. We're going to be significantly increasing the number of carpool spaces for both B and S permits. We'll be preserving the number of ADA spaces and actually expanding the number of ADA spaces in this area. So we've been at approximately the right number of ADA spaces over in that part of campus. I've heard a little bit, and we're evaluating the data to see if we need to bring it up just a touch under the current condition. But as we throw a construction site in the middle of this, even if we have preserved the amount of space, we've thrown in an impediment to circulation. And so we'll be adding additional spaces both south and north of the site in order to ensure that those folks that have mobility challenges can find parking where they need it. So the ProRide pilot, which was originally scheduled to end at the beginning of fall quarter as the Osler Garage came online, will be extended for the North Torrey Pines Living and Learning project. We are also going to reform the reserve parking program on campus. We heard loud and clear during my first week on campus, I heard loud and clear from the Faculty Senate, faculty concerns about the underutilization of reserve parking on the campus. You see all those spaces that are open at any given point during the day, and while the holders of those spaces have paid a lot for them, and they have legitimate need to get on in campus in that very surgical, no pun intended, sort of way, they don't necessarily need their very own space 24/7. There are ways that we can ensure that level of access and better use that university asset to serve the whole of the university population. So we'll be introducing for the fall quarter a tiered reserve system that pools reserve spaces together for the majority of our reserve space customers and allows us to manage the sales levels into those lots so that the spaces are better utilized, and yet folks can always predictably find a space in that lot. We also have another tier in there that will open up reserved spaces in the evenings. On the Central Academic Campus, reserved spaces are very poorly used during the evening hours, and yet we have students who are on campus for class, faculty, or who are on to teach that could really use those spaces to have proximity to their buildings. And so we'll be opening those spaces up in the evenings as well. Those changes to the reserve parking program, when we finalize the proposal, will be posted in the virtual town hall for public feedback. And so we hope that you will check out the virtual town hall, and in fact there is a link on there to subscribe for updates on the town hall so that every time we put out a new policy or major operational change for comment that you'll receive a notice and an invitation to offer feedback. So, specific to North Torrey Pines Living and Learning, we have also produced a set of tenets to guide the reallocation of parking in this area. Reallocating almost 1,000 parking spaces in one fell swoop is a major change with lots of small interests, small but important interests within it. With that number of moving parts, we didn't want one loud voice to cause us to lose track of other interests that were in the projects. And so we've prepared this set of tenets to guide the reallocation process and to keep us true to our ideals as a department and as an institution. Those are posted online now for your feedback, and we will be using them to finalize the reallocation plan, which will also then be posted for feedback. And when I say we'll finalize it, we mean we'll get it to a draft form that we are confident in. We will be applying that feedback that we receive from you into a final draft of that. So I understand that a number of folks with us today in person and online work in the health system, and also that the health system has adopted Shingo Lean as an improvement process and a management philosophy. We have adopted that as well within transportation services, and I have background in that from my time in Washington. As a part of that, we are endeavoring over the next 15 months to deliver 1,000 small improvements to the campus parking and transportation system. We believe that little changes that employees can simply go out and execute, in many cases on their own without management approval or with management input, but implement with a great degree of independence, are things that we can deliver quickly and that add up to a really big difference for the campus community. And so we've got on the screen just a handful of things that have been implemented recently, and we will keep you up to date on how this initiative is going. But it is part of how we are doing business going forward and how we hope to, in our change process, not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? We won't roll everything up into one big high-risk change. We're going to move in an incremental and innovative sort of fashion. So, a few priorities looking forward. We have heard loud and clear through our customer survey that we need to improve our communication. And so this summer we'll be streamlining our website, more intuitive organization, less clicks to get to what you want to see, more visual presentation of information and less words. Through our First to Know, we will be proactively engaging our customers and making sure that you know what you need to know when you need to know it. It's our goal to implement for the fall quarter a customer relationship management system that provides one-stop shopping for you, if you will. That means a single email address as opposed to the 7 or 8 that we have right now, depending on the service that you want. A single telephone number. You don't need to worry about which subunit of the department you're calling, because our org chart shouldn't matter when you're trying to do business with us. In addition, through the CRM system, everything gets tracked and measured, which allows us to ensure that when you send an email in, it doesn't get forwarded into a personal email box where that person gets sick or is otherwise out on leave, and you don't get a timely answer to your question. So we're going to be making our parking occupancy data available to the public. You saw that we started doing that this quarter with the manual counts that we do as a part of our own management philosophy, but you probably have also seen that we've been experimenting with parking sensors on campus over the last several years. We do our next major deployment of sensors this fall with the opening of the Osler garage, and we will begin this summer to start to push that data out in real time via the UCSD app. So we intend to bring that technology to the entirety of the campus parking system over time. For our parking garages, I've included in my budget proposal for the next 2 years to retrofit all of our legacy parking garages on campus with sensors. So for the garages, we will be able to push out in real time. We're also experimenting with some new technologies that allow us to cost effectively gather occupancy data for surface lots. Presuming that that demonstration project goes well, I could have some very, very good news for you a year from now when we do our next in-person town hall. So real-time space availability is good, but you shouldn't have to check an app when you're coming into work or to school to figure out where you're going to park. There should be predictability baked into the parking system. Now, as a newcomer to the university and to the parking system we have here, I will not second guess the decisions of those who've gone before me, but I will say that our current permitting system, A, B, S, and V, is close to, if not at the end of its useful life. For a smaller university, it's great. It offers tremendous flexibility. You can drive from one side of the campus to the other and your parking permit's going to be good. What it doesn't do is allow us to manage permit sales levels, so there's actually a space there when you get there. It doesn't allow us to manage permit sales levels so that you know where you should go without checking an app when you're coming into campus. And so a maturation of the campus parking permit system is in order if we're going to create predictability. The first thing that we can do without any new permit types or any major reforms is stop putting 5 or 6 kinds of parking in any given parking lot. That fragments the system and makes more places that you have to look for parking. So what we're working towards is consolidating parking on the campus. The A's, instead of being in 5 little lots in one neighborhood on the campus, get pulled together in a single lot. Similarly with the B's, right? And so it's less places to look, and the system starts to operate a little bit more predictably and a little bit more efficiently. And so we've started doing that incrementally on the East Campus here, consolidating staff parking into the Athena parking structure, and that is a trend that will continue over time. So similarly, for those of you who work closely with our patients, we have an opportunity to consolidate our patient parking. And while patient parking does need to be close to the individual facility that they are going to, it doesn't need to be as fragmented as it is. And so we can simplify the guidance and wayfinding that we have for patients coming into the campus and make it easier for them if we consolidate things. And one of the ways that we can do that is also consolidation into valet. Patient valet is really the future-looking delivery model for the campus because we can bring patients to the front door of their facility then, and where the car gets parked is not something that they have to worry about. When the parking that they've prepaid for runs out is not something that they have to worry about. And we can own that patient experience from the moment that they arrive on campus all the way up through departure, and make sure that it's the kind of experience we want them to have, because they'll be interacting with a human being and not with a machine. Similarly, as we talk about improving the predictability of our facilities, we have the chance to pilot, and will be doing this, facility-specific parking on campus. And so if you were to look at universities across the U.S., very few of them outside of the UC system have a system like we have with ABS and V. Instead, most universities have moved to either a zoned system where there are clusters of parking lots that share a permit type, but they're all proximate to one another, or to a lot-specific permitting system where you get a permit for a specific lot on the campus and the sales levels are managed so that you can drive right to that lot and you know that there will be a parking space for you every day. One loses flexibility in those systems, but there are ways that we can bake the flexibility back in for folks who do need to move about for their job. And so special designators and other things that we can layer on top in order to meet those business needs. So we have a transportation demand management program. It's done very well, particularly for our students, but there is room to grow on it. There are still barriers to entry for mass transit, ride-sharing, carpooling, bicycling, and we need to remove those. As one example, for the North Torrey Pines Living and Learning Project this summer, where we're going to have a deficit of parking temporarily on the central campus, if you have not ridden transit in the last 2 years, I'll buy your EcoPass for the summer quarter. Free transit pass for the 3 months of summer quarter if you haven't ridden transit in the last 2 years. That is one of the ways that we can remove barriers to entry, and there are other things that we can do across the range of transportation options. If we reduce our drive-alone rates, we can reduce our future construction costs, which helps all of us in terms of what we pay for permits. We need to improve those first and last mile connections to the trolley, as I spoke about earlier. And then we'll be pivoting the campus shuttle system to interact heavily with the trolley system, really serve as that collector and distributor for the trolley. Similarly, MTS will be reconfiguring their service in this area of the community to leverage light rail as well. That gives us an opportunity to draw more MTS service onto the campus. We did this when I was at the University of Washington and helped launch light rail on the University of Washington campus adjacent to the campus medical center. And there we were able to significantly increase express bus service, for example, as well as local service into the campus environment to benefit not just those who were making connections to light rail, but the entire campus community. Finally, we need to complete our parking capital improvement program. Because as I mentioned before, we are building parking, and lots and lots and lots of it. So whether it's at Campus Point East, and just before the session started, we were talking about the conversion of the sports deck and the 264 stalls that will bring online. We've got the Voight parking structure over by the School of Engineering at 850 stalls. Triton Pavilion, Nuevo West just across the canyon here. North Torrey Pines Living and Learning down at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And then under the light rail right-of-way, as the construction crews turn that back to us, we'll be bringing surface parking in at those locations. We'll be doing the parking guidance system retrofits that I mentioned for existing garages and continuing to build out our supply of EV parking on the campus so that folks who don't have access to home-based charging because they live in condominiums or apartment buildings have a place where they can charge up, and we make those greener modes of commuting more accessible to the campus community. So with that, thank you for your patience as I provided a bit of background and context. And I'd like to turn it to you for your suggestions of how we can do a better job supporting you, your questions about the campus parking system and how to, or transportation system and how to navigate it, and some of the changes that are on the horizon. A great question, and for the video I'll repeat. The question was, do we have carpool dedicated parking on the East Campus? I don't recall seeing that on the East Campus. I haven't committed the entire inventory to memory yet, but we'll review that and make sure that we continue to offer that. I think for some of our folks that are on shift work here, it could be a particularly good option, and one that enhances that feeling of safety for folks that are working off hours, because you'll always be with that colleague. So great question and suggestion. I appreciate the point. And so the question is, for folks who could potentially take advantage of the light rail, what will we be doing as a campus to help make that feasible for them? And a comment that it appears that the other ways of getting to campus other than driving alone are underutilized today. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, they are underutilized. Now, fact is, we have more than 3 million trips to and from the campus on MTS every year. For the trolley, we've got about a third of the faculty and staff population that lives within the sort of walk and bike shed for the trolley. So there's a real opportunity to make that work. The question is, how do we make it more attractive to faculty and staff and more feasible? So first, I started talking about first and last mile connections, and we need to be focused on that on the university side of things to make sure that we can get people to their buildings, but we also need to focus on those first and last mile connections on the origin side of those trips, making sure that the connections to light rail stations elsewhere within the system are actually effective. And so here's where we will be participating in the working groups with MTS that help to inform how the system is reconfigured to take advantage of light rail. Similarly, an interesting program that we had at the University of Washington when I was there, and I recognize many of us are locked into where we live right now, but for new faculty and staff coming to the university or folks that are renting, we have choices about where we live, limited of course by the economics of this region. But one of the things that we were able to do at Washington was partner with a local bank to provide location-efficient mortgages. And what those are is a recognition that if somebody lives adjacent to the light rail line, the transportation is going to be a statistically smaller portion of their expense structure, and that means that they can actually afford a larger mortgage. And so it increases people's borrowing potential when you do that. So we can have partnerships like that as well. I mentioned the first quarter free for transit that we're doing for North Torrey Pines Living and Learning. I don't presently have a dedicated funding stream for that, but that is the sort of thing that in my soul I would like to be able to extend and make a permanent program for the campus. That if you're willing to make that transition to transit, we're going to help you out for that first quarter, and then over time wean into to the sort of full freight cost of transit. And I'll note that for the university community, the full freight cost of transit is still 25% less than a retail transit pass, which is also less than paying the daily fare when you ride. So because we pre-purchase eco-passes for the university community, we get a bulk discount. And so we pass that discount through when you purchase your eco-pass through our office, and it's 25% less than you would pay if you went and bought a comparable product directly from MTS. The question was, what can we be doing today so we don't have all our eggs in the trolley basket? And specifically, the Hillcrest shuttle was used as an example, and it's a great one. Our shuttles are designed first and foremost for circulation within the campus or between the two campuses of the university here and at Hillcrest. So that's the purpose with which that shuttle was put in place. Now, it has been discovered by commuters and has started to serve this commuter purpose. And personally, I think that's fantastic. It's actually driven us to standing room only most of the day on the Hillcrest shuttle, and I'm actually looking at expanding the capacity on the Hillcrest shuttle if I can find the funding for next year. So the question was, how then can we build on things like that and offer more shuttle services or solve the problem of parking at origin for folks that are going to sort of park and ride into the campus? So it's a great question. Shuttles are very, very expensive to run, and by the time you add in parking to that, they become an even more expensive proposition. So as it relates to Park and Ride, our strategy is going to be to leverage MTS express buses. And so we will look for parking facilities that are on express bus routes, try to lease space in those facilities, make it available to the university community either at a cut rate or free, and then ask people to ride in via MTS because it's less expensive to deliver in that way as opposed to shuttles. And also from an equity standpoint, everyone else at campus pays for their own commute. And so there should be some contribution made by those folks. I'm still happy to help support it and incentivize Park and Ride activity. So.
And that's helpful. Is there anything like that now?
Yeah, so in terms of options today for Park and Ride type service, the Superloop is providing an alternative like that. We actually have a fair number of folks in the university community that park in the areas surrounding the university, and we have all-day frequent reliable transit service in the form of the Superloop that gets people in and out of the campus, including here on the East Campus. And so that's an option that is being taken advantage of by a number of people. We don't have a great read on exactly how many, but you don't have to look very long at the parking patterns in the neighborhoods to recognize that there's a fair amount of parking that ties directly to UCSD. Yep. We haven't identified a parking facility that would support it downtown, but I'm happy to go look on that one. Right now, the parking partnerships that we're looking at are in the area of the East Campus here. We're opening conversations with a few of the churches over on the other side of Regents. But happy to put downtown on the list and go on down and start trying to identify areas that we could park folks that would be well served by MTS with a timely connection up. In terms of running shuttles, we don't have either the financial capacity or frankly the equipment capacity in order to be able to run that. And because the lead time to purchase buses is almost 2 years, it would be difficult for us to scale something like that up quickly. But we can leverage MTS.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
Excellent. Yes?
I have a question.
Absolutely. So for folks playing along at home, the question was about the interconnection between Transit MTS and the shuttle system. So riding up on a bus, but not being confident that shuttle connection is going to be in place to get to the final destination. I have some good news for you. Not only do we have the shuttles out in the app so that you can see in real time where the shuttle buses are, all of our shuttles are now on a timetable. No more circulator shuttles that just sort of go around the loop and they come when they come. They're all on a timetable. Timetables are for most routes today published online. We're getting the last routes published online right now. But better than that, we're putting together the signage so they're all published at the stop. And you can look at a sign at the stop, don't have to get into your phone, don't have to check a website in advance, and it will tell you how long it's going to be until the next shuttles should be there. So follow-up question is wanting to know about total travel time and being able to plan out an entire trip right down to the point of arrival. So we will be getting the timetables posted at the stops. They are online right now. That gives you some predictability in that, but you still have to do the math yourself and maybe ride a couple of times to be confident in terms of when you're going to arrive at your destination. So one of the things on our wish list for technology is a fully integrated trip planner. So we use different technology than MTS uses right now, which stands in the way of having an integrated trip planner. We're opening a dialogue with our regional partners and would like to adopt the same technology. In fact, we're holding off a technology buy within transportation services with the hope that we're going to be able to converge with our partners. What that could mean is, and you know, we don't have any commitments yet on this, but what it could mean, getting the same technology on board, is that we automatically know where the buses are, how full they are, one trip planner, MTS and UCSD all together, real-time availability information for buses and shuttles all together in one location, and even potentially transit signal prioritization for campus shuttle buses so that green lights can come earlier or last longer to get the buses through and make sure that we hold to the timetable. So, fingers crossed, we'll be working with the region on trying to bring our small transit system here on the campus in line with the larger transit community. We mentioned this summer that we'll be reforming the website. One of the things that needs to be reformed is how the shuttle timetables are posted on there, because I will tell you, it took me a month and change, and then I had to ask someone when I came into the university to actually find the timetables for my routes. They are there, transportation.ucsd.edu. Click on shuttles. What will come up is a list of all of our shuttle routes. Every one of those titles is expandable. When you click on it to expand it, you'll see the timetable for the route for all but I believe one of our routes today, and that one will be getting the full timetable posted.
Okay, great, thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions? Yes. So questions about parking, specifically B spots for ECOB, Jacobs, and ACTRI. Great question. So we're adding B spaces to the whole of the eastern campus, which is going to do a little bit to remove pressure from Bs in general. There are folks who end up parking over here that this isn't their center of gravity. This is the center of gravity for most people here, but there are certainly some where this isn't their center of gravity. We're also recognizing that there's just no way to create as many B spaces over here as we have staff who would like them. And also that as a medical campus, our patients come first, and proximity parking needs to go to our patients first. And so we will never, I hate to break it to you, fully satisfy B parking demand over in this area of the campus. What we can do, though, is make sure that we provide predictability in B parking that is within a reasonable distance, either walking or by shuttle. So specific to this area of the East Campus, then, we have just expanded the hours of the East Campus Connector shuttle. That's our shuttle that runs every 15 minutes from out by Chancellor's Park through past the Athena parking garage, stops at Thornton, now comes to an added stop right between Thornton and ACTRI here on the street before continuing around to ECOB. So we've got the new stop right here, expanded hours in the morning so that we cover people who are on the 7 a.m. And 7 p.m. shift changes. So we now start that shuttle up at 6:30 in the morning and continue it until I believe 8 or 8:30 in the evening. Again, times posted on the website. So the question was, hey, there's all these great options. Why am I paying $80 a month to park here on the campus? And it's a good one. It's one that I can't answer for you because it's a personal choice. It's about what we value most in terms of our days. And some people do value the proximity of being here. Now, I mentioned that we're an auxiliary of the university and that our dollars go to support the services that we provide. So that $81 cost of a parking permit for a B customer does not actually even cover the cost of service for that. We have a mounting debt challenge within my department. So the price of that can't go down. I would actually expect that over time it's going to go up. It hasn't gone up in 10 years yet. We've added a lot of debt during that period. So the decision to then purchase a B permit as opposed to use those other options really has to do with personal priorities. And for those who would rather choose something else and don't value being in quite as close as much, we encourage them to take advantage of those other opportunities. What that means is we don't have to build as much parking going forward, and at $40,000 to $80,000 to construct a single structured parking space. That's what it costs these days. If we can have more people taking those other choices and less people trying to purchase proximate parking, we're going to be better off because $81 a permit does not pay for an $80,000 parking space over 30 years or 40 years or even 50 years. So, other questions? Yes?
The parking
And so the question for those at home, we're currently adding parking on top of the Campus Point East garage. There had been a soccer field there for a number of years. We're halfway through the process of removing that today to add parking. So that project is being done in 2 phases. So in the interim condition, that will operate exclusively as a valet lot. The reason is the ingress and egress for it is very complex, and I would not want to be writing the insurance policy for us to have private citizens pulling in and out of that lot on their own. So we'll have the valet do it. The future state for that lot is we're actually going to bridge between that top level of the Campus Point East, which isn't tied into the circulation of the rest of that garage. We're going to bridge over to Campus Point West. And then it will function as an integrated part of the Campus Point West garage. Now, the long-term use of it is a question mark. I mentioned that we're seeing patient loads rise with KOB. We're trying to get our patients in closer. And so if we continue to see the patient demand, that could very well be a patient lot. In which case we would look at other locations where we've been parking patients and try to concentrate staff in those locations. In the interim, we're going to use it as a flex lot. It's whichever is the challenge that we're having most acutely. We'll program in either patients or staff based on the answer to that question while we pivot the system overall to a long-term configuration. Allow me to correct myself. The question for folks at home or watching in their offices was there has been a question about the valet surcharge, which is still in place at some locations, not all, for valet parking. When we standardized parking rates across valet and the rest of the parking system just a few weeks or a month back, that change was a bridge too far at the moment. We were introducing a lot of change into the system. The financial models for it were complicated, and we wanted to get through the initial transition. We've come back, and in phase 2 of our health system parking improvement project, we are actually planning to eliminate the valet surcharge for handicap at all locations. So a handicapped person, whether they're at Moores, Thornton, Jacobs, or Hillcrest, is going to have the same valet parking experience. So that is coming imminently. We don't have an exact date agreed to yet on the pivot, but it will be implemented prior to the end of May. Well, I want to be candid with you without getting too far out over my skis. So as I mentioned, we're trying to get patients closer to the front door. We're trying to concentrate staff parking in less facilities so that it becomes more predictable and easier to find. The spaces, the staff spaces that were moved out of the Campus Point West garage moved to Athena. So they weren't eliminated, they were moved over to Athena. I recognize that that's a little bit further. It is likely that more staff parking will move from Campus Point West to Athena over time. And I just want to be candid about that. Patients first, we need to get them closer to the door. And by concentrating our staff parking, we can do a better job creating predictability for staff. So thank you for the feedback on that. I had thought that a staff-wide email went on the medical or the health system side about that. I apologize that it didn't. You should be receiving those notifications when we make changes to the system in that way. That one was a response to a very acute issue. We had actually run out of patient parking, or approximate patient parking, I should say, navigable, easy to find patient parking, 2 or 3 times in the week preceding that change. So that change was made on an emergent basis. It does not excuse the fact that you didn't receive a communication. I thought that had gone out. I don't own the communications to the health system employees, so I can share with you the intention that those will always go out in advance, because that's what I've heard from my colleagues in the health system. I can make you a promise that if you subscribe to First to Know for the La Jolla campus of the health system, you will hear from me in advance on changes like that going forward. So, yes.
You said we had
I believe, and I'm going to look over to my colleague Ernest Villarreal, who is my liaison on the health system side. Did we run out of both valet and self-park for patients in that week?
We ran out of valet spaces during the time which the Perlman Valet lot was under construction.
Oh,
Since the Perlman lot has reopened and it's continuing as valet, we now have enough valet spaces.
So during the week in question, where we had the shortage on patient valet parking then, or on patient parking, there was still some space available in the valet. However, we had folks that were coming in and attempting to self-park. They still haven't adapted to the fact that there's no valet surcharge, or they simply don't like valet. And there's some portion of the population that just never want to turn over their keys.
right.
And so we had patient frustration associated with this, and it came in, we heard the feedback on it. I'm driving around, I'm missing my appointment because I can't find a place to park, and we never want to be in that situation. So that's what drove that immediate change. For folks at home, question about the top floor of Athena and the employee valet that is there. Monday through Friday, during business hours, we have the valet operating there. And after hours for key claim, we do key pickup in the office at the Athena parking structure. At the end of the shift of the person there, they get handed off to hospital security. And hospital security will have keys so that you can retrieve vehicles if you're held over. And that will continue to be there for employees, or potentially relocate if we find that there's a place where we can better serve employees in the form of an employee valet. But I think that for the foreseeable future, at least until we finish the full sports deck conversion, that employee valet is going to be necessary. Seeing nothing else, let me just wrap things up by saying thank you, and I'll stick around after if you have anything that you wanted to chat about but didn't necessarily want on camera, or a great idea just pops into your mind. But thank you for coming out, for engaging in the conversation. As I shared, I hope it's the beginning of a conversation and not a flash in the pan. I will hold up my end of that bargain and be back with you in a year, be with you throughout the year online. Please do reach out and let us know how we can do a better job serving you. And thanks for coming out today.